Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave, on a beautiful. No, it's already November, Big C. November 29th, 2018. Oh my goodness, Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I'm excited about this Thursday night menu that we have. You know, we got some pro football going on down there in Dallas. But when you think about the tailgate that you set up, you got all that Louisiana Cajun food, and you got all that Texas barbecue.
Yep.
I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, you talk about gluttony past the Pepto-Bismol and everything, Charlton. It's going to be a big party tonight.
No, they will have a big party. There's a lot going on, not just in Texas, but all over the sports universe. In fact, we even go up into Canada, Big C. A lot of good things happening in the world of sports. And I know that even POTUS decided with that G20 summit, he said there's so many sports programs going on. He even canceled his meeting with Putin, his date with Putin, something about Putin, and he decided to cancel about Putin and somebody's in trouble. I don't know what it is, but it's all fair and love and war. I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, I know with all the talk of all the sports things going on in the world, and, you know, we think about it all has an origin. But before I even get into that, it's still a movie that I think about because it deals with sports on a pro and college level. It deals with one of the greatest actors in the universe, Denzel Washington, written and directed by the great Spike Lee. It's called He Got Game. And He Got Game is what a lot of athletes say when they see another player ball and they say, man, that brother can play, or he got game. That was about a guy that was being recruited out of Big State. The Big State was trying to get him. Denzel played his father, who was in some time of trouble. And, you know, it's a shame they cast black men always in prison or something. Denzel's a brilliant man, but they cast him as that. But we know Denzel was given an ultimatum. Get your father to come to Big State, and we'll get lessen your time. We know mainstream, they played a hook game. When they hooked it, they gave it what they call hoodwinking them, Big C. They didn't do what they said. They didn't do what they said. So I hate the fact that they played Denzel as a guy in prison who's a brilliant man, but they had a guy named Ray Allen playing Jesus Shuttlesworth. But it was all about getting the guys who have talent. That's when mainstream really loves you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's been some real life stories. You don't even have to go to the cinema roll on that. You can look no further than Randy Moss and Allen Iverson in the state of Virginia and West Virginia.
That's right.
When Randy Moss was coming out of high school, Randy Moss was charged in an altercation, which cost him some jail time because he had chose not to go to West Virginia University. And so they took it personally, and they charged him. Same thing with the basketball player, Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson, yeah.
He had chose not to go to Virginia and play basketball. And he was in a situation at a bowling alley where a fight broke out.
Yep.
And he was the only one charged. Even though he didn't strike anybody, he tried to break up the altercation. He was the only one charged. Spent jail time, had a criminal record, Charlton, because he chose not to go to college. This is the power of the Jim Crow states. When people don't want to think that it's real, and we talk about voter suppression and obstruction, think about this. Here are some young men who decide that they want to get out of a downtrodden situation in the area that they grew up in. And because they had the freedom to choose, society, mainstream white society said, no, unless you can benefit our university here, then we will incarcerate you. And you think about that from a person, and you can Google that with Randy Moss and Allen Iverson. It's out there. It was huge stories that these two young men coming out of high school had to do jail time because they chose not to go to the local universities that everybody wanted them to go to. They were the best players in their state, athletically in all sports. But they wanted to leave there, Charlton, because they didn't feel that there was a future in that area. We talked about that in a couple of our programs, Charlton, about what is there for these college kids once their playing days are over. when you look at the size of these communities where these universities sit, is there a life after sports? Most of these towns rely on the athletic programs in the universities, Charlton.
Yeah, they do.
They're generally 50 to 60% of the local population. And when school is out, there's nothing there. I mean, when a game is on in certain cities, everybody can leave the doors unlocked because there's nobody left to rob the house or the store.
Yeah, that's true, Big C.
And so when you look at how minority athletes, black athletes have been manipulated over the years, and people think that, well, we care about them. We care about what they can make for them. That's what they care about. How much financial impact will you have on our university? How many game impact will you have on our university? That's what we care the most about you on. We don't care about your degree. We don't care about anything else. We want to know how many wins that you'll bring our program and how much financial revenue will our athletic department and university benefit from you.
That's always the case, and that's why I think every college kid should watch the movie. And you brought up the real, true versions of it. Allen Iverson, Randy Moss. There've been a lot of other less known athletes that have been through that same type of situation, Big C. And Denzel played it great. Of course, who wouldn't do whatever they can to get their children, to be safe? I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. When I look at the movie He Got Game, I saw so many things. It had adult entertainment. They supplied the athletes with adult entertainment. I believe Rick Fox, former LA Laker, is also in that movie. I believe Carmelo Anthony's spouse was also in that movie at the time. And then they had a couple of other well-known actors and actresses that were in that movie. But something that I cannot, because it happens every year where they're recycling new players and new athletes. That's why we always tell players, get your education and go and talk to a mentor, someone you trust, not just someone blowing smoke, making you feel good. What I think about He Got Game is the system was stacked against his father, so they used him, and the system was stacked against his son. So they put pressure on him, saying, if you go where we tell you to go, we'll let your father do less time. And I know, Big C, there's a lot of African Americans around the country whose parents may be caught up in that same garbage because of racial profiling, but the message cannot be lost, Big C. You still got to get some advice from those you trust, and don't just listen to people blowing smoke. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you can also find Adrian Peterson in that role. His father was incarcerated, and for some reason he got out, earlier than what he was scheduled to do when Adrian attended the University of Oklahoma.
Wow.
So when you think about how athletes are manipulated, it's nice to look at the cinematography angle of it, Charlton, but there's so much real life out there. And these players are wooed. I mean, they're paid to go to universities. The parents are given benefits. I mean, everybody talked about LeBron James when he was coming out of high school, and, his mother, had bought him this Hummer, this H2, that he just put on sale at an auction, recently, Charlton. But, there was so much investigation going on behind that from the NCAA because a black student wasn't supposed to have anything nice.
Right.
He was supposed to, if he did it, he was supposed to have gotten it illegally. You can go back to Eric Dickerson when he chose to go to SMU. They investigated Eric Dickerson because he got a new Trans Am. Just like you saw Smokey and the Bandit. But they didn't investigate every other student that was there at SMU on athletic scholarships that had new cars also. But because Eric Dickerson, everybody wanted Eric Dickerson, is that other schools incited an investigation against SMU and Eric Dickerson and his grandmother, who was raising him.
Wow.
So black athletes have not had the same privilege as white athletes. When you don't go where somebody demands that you go, then all of a sudden we will turn the screws on you and put pressure on you. And this has happened for decades, Charlton. You don't hear this intensity about white athletes.
No, you don't.
It's about a black athlete who can change the face of your program. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's in football, basketball, Charlton. It follows these guys all the time. We don't hear about it in the world of baseball. But when you think about major college football and major college basketball, every year there's controversy about black athletes who go to certain schools. Why is it? It's like voter suppression. When you're sitting there and you don't want people to vote, and you do everything in your power to obstruct them from voting, you don't bring extension cords to power up the voting stations.
Yep.
You change and close down voting stations so that people who don't drive have a hard time getting there. They got to have a current ID, even though they voted in that poll for 40 years. Well, their ID is expired because they no longer drive.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the same pressure that you put on black athletes all the time. Well, you have to go here because you're going to help this program to promise.
Yep.
And we've seen it over the years. You know, Marcus Dupree at Oklahoma was the same way, Charlton, out of little Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yep.
Think about it. He's in Mississippi. He left the state of Mississippi, Charlton. We just saw what happened with Cindy Highsmith last night and how the obstruction and how black people have thought about in Mississippi. She said she would attend a public hanging, Charlton, in 2018. Marcus Dupree left there back in the 80s. I think it was 81, 82 when he left Mississippi.
Yeah.
Think about the climate in Mississippi at that time. If they're talking about public hangings in 2018, in 1981, 82, they were probably still executing public hangings, Charlton.
Well,
so when you look at the pressure that's put on black athletes to benefit schools, Charlton, and then they choose not to because they're aware that they have their own consciousness about what they want to be in life.
Yep.
And that you cannot control them anymore just because they're an athlete.
You know, I think that's so important, and I love starting our show today with He Got Game. Because everybody's talking about the guys that can play. Whether it's LeBron James, yeah, he got game. Whether it's someone like Dak Prescott, yeah, he got game. Drew Brees, he got game. Steph Curry, he got game. A lot of these guys, Durant, they all got game, Big C. But there's a pressure that athletes deal with, especially the young African Americans, that their white brethren don't deal with. And I know people say, well, this is already past news, but it's worth bringing up again. In that movie, He Got Game, they talked about doing things that will lessen time for your father. Also doing things that will help you get a scholarship if you come to our school, because we have what you want, which is primarily liberty and justice for all and the pursuit of happiness. But I go back to Cindy Highsmith that you just brought up. And I bring it up because Mississippi State has a basketball program that's pretty good. And many people talk about things one time and it's out in and out one ear. But I just want to bring this up because of Cindy Highsmith. There's been no pushback on Cindy Highsmith for saying she'd go to a public lynching. In a state that they're crazy about sports and black athletes. They love black men, especially to play sports for their schools, even though they don't get paid. They love them, Big C. They give them everything you saw in He Got Game. You want some entertainment? We're going to feed you her too. And if you don't go to our school, then it can be called assault. Yeah, what we gave you, that was assault. That's what you did because you chose not to come to our school. And I want people to understand, Big C, that's more real than what I'm saying. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, black athletes have been set up forever in situations to say that they committed a crime because they want them to go places. They've had family members that they put pressure on because they want them to attend schools. You think about that's almost indentured service, Charlton, is what they've become.
Yep.
You work for us and we'll lessen the crime on somebody else or even yourself.
Yeah.
And it's wrong, but, society has allowed this to go on for decades, Charlton, because so many people are enamored by the score and the score only.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. What's your record? When you think about in the South, here it is 2018, Charlton. 50 years ago, Mississippi didn't have any black players.
Yeah.
You think about that. 50 years ago, Mississippi didn't have any black players. When Archie Manning started playing quarterback at the University of Mississippi, and everybody knows of the Manning family, his kids, Peyton and Eli.
Yep.
He didn't have any black teammates at the University of Mississippi. So when you want to think about where Mississippi is and how revered Archie Manning is in that state, Charlton, there was no black players that he had to compete with, or even compete with on his team. So, it was all him. So that's how segregation is. People say, well, it's the past. You know somebody in your family who's 60 and 70 years old.
Yeah.
So they lived through that segregation.
Sure
so
did.
it's not in the past. It's still in the present because you communicate with these people.
Yep, and that's so true. And so, Big C, we don't have a script. I don't even know what you're going to say half the time. I just talked to you. But just bringing that He Got Game and how POTUS went down and held hands with Cindy Highsmith and how she said that she would go to a public lynching, and all these black athletes all over the country playing, making money for white institutions for the most part, without compensation. Yeah, you get the chance to go to school until they replace your scholarship with somebody bigger, stronger, and faster. Now, how does the universe make justice? Well, when POTUS went down and put his hands on that woman, as opposed to admonishing her for those statements, Mississippi citizens made her senator. Okay? Today, with Cohen's admissions, it puts POTUS' son, Don Trump Jr., in the crosshairs. His own son has been doing some dirty work for him. This is not allegedly anymore, okay? He's been named, and he's been named by Cohen, who was his right-hand man. If he's your right-hand man, that means you trust him, last I can tell, Big C. So if your right-hand man is a liar, he's been your right-hand man for a long time. If your right-hand man is weak and bends under pressure, why was he your right-hand man for so long? But now that they got some stuff on him and Putin, now he's in the same position that he got game was in. What will you do to save your son? What will you do to save your father? Big C, sports and politics is all the same. It's the same, Big C. It's all competitive. Donald Trump's in the same boat that a lot of African-American athletes are in because they have senators and politicians like Sidney Highsmith. They put him in the crosshairs, Big C. They got to make a choice. What choice will Donald Trump make by opening his mouth now that his son's going to be investigated, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Donald Trump has the privilege of lying, Charlton, and lying to the masses and getting away with it. He's not being called out. You think about it. If you have an African-American, Charlton, sitting in that situation and lying, he's going to be indicted. This is a situation because he represents mainstream white America, Charlton, more so than anything else. He represents mainstream white America. And they have a hard time calling him to task on his lies. I mean, he lies every day. You know, I look at the statement that he made today. Now, Michael Cohen was his attorney for 12 years. 12 years.
Yeah.
That meant that he was privy to a lot of information.
Sure was.
On the president. And he did a lot of work for the president. Everybody knew him as the president's fixer.
Right.
He was the one always making the payoffs, getting him out of situations when he was a private citizen.
Yeah.
But to come on television saying that he wasn't a very intelligent man. So if he wasn't a very intelligent man and he was handling all of your situations, that meant that you were less intelligent than him.
Wow.
And so that's the situation. When you look at a person who is spending all his time lying, and he's going to be backed up by Fox News, they're going to say, well, you know, it's the left is after him.
Right.
So his words don't count. They'll say, well, they're mischaracterizing his words. That, you know, they're trying to make something up out of what he said. Even though they go verbatim as far as what he said. He had no interest in Russia, even though we knew he had the beauty pageants, Miss World contest over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. You know, he did a lot of dealings in that country, but he said he never did. Even though it's on videotape.
Yeah.
You know, we had television programs coming out of there with him over there.
Yep.
So for him to sit there and lie and not be called out, I mean, that's what's wrong with our media, regardless of which network you look to, Charlton.
Yeah.
If he's lying, he's lying. Tell us he's lying. Be honest about it.
Yep.
You can say alleged lie. You don't say forget or, you know, inaccurate.
Fake news.
Say an alleged lie.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
We understand what lie means. So here's a situation where he'll pardon his son regardless of what happens to his son. He'll pardon him. And he'll go after everybody else. It's like, here it is, you're president, and you're going after other houses of politics.
Yep.
To say, well, I'm going to turn over stuff on you guys. This is kids like anybody who's played a pickup basketball game.
Yeah.
And you showed up with the basketball.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you didn't like the way things were going.
Game over.
You said, I'm taking my ball and go home.
Yeah.
You'll play without the ball. That's the presidency of the United States right now, Charlton. It's a pickup basketball on the street.
Yep.
Where when somebody gets disgruntled, he's going to take his ball and go home and try to hurt everybody.
Yeah, I just think that's a twist of fate. Big C, we just talked about it. How the universe know what we're talking about? When you endorse wrong, when you endorse somebody who's egregious, who's xenophobic, who has this enmity for people of color, that lynching is a joke that gets her voted into the Senate in Mississippi by the citizens. And POTUS could have been down there and did a John McCain moment. No, ma'am. No, that's not acceptable.
I think of a line that the late Malcolm X used decades ago back in '63 when he said, this is a sign of the chickens coming home to roost.
Isn't that true?
And everybody wanted to label Malcolm X as a racist for making that statement. Even though blacks are being lynched in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
Blacks are being killed in America just for wanting to vote. In Mississippi and other states. And this individual would not stand up for black rights at that time, Charlton. He would not even allow blacks to vote.
Nope.
And Malcolm X made a statement about him in his passing, and everyone wanted to label Malcolm X a racist against America.
Yeah.
And America didn't recognize what it was doing to black people.
Oh, they knew.
That was acceptable to America.
Right.
To have atrocities here on American soil against black people.
Yep.
It was okay to do that, to kill black people every day. It was acceptable. But if a black person spoke up, then they were a racist.
Yeah.
Because they weren't wanting to accept what they had to deal with for years, Charlton.
Yeah, and that's why. And I love not being dumb. I mean, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I love expressing what I know. And I ask people to Google if we're right or wrong. Google it. If we're wrong, disclaim us now. You know, it's so important that the irony. Only God, Big C, could have timed out what we were talking about. We didn't know it was going to happen. How did we know? We didn't know. But we were saying when POTUS embraced that woman, that universe will take care of justice. And it just did today. How did we know that? All I'm saying is to young people, when you're put in the crosshairs and when people try to put pressure on you, try to do what's right. Because when you do what's right, no matter what people say, the truth will set you free. We've heard that many times. But I just think it's so ironic at all the knuckleheads that will not shout down this vitriolic, this racism, this xenophobia. Now POTUS is in the crosshairs and his family's coming with him. Not because of something they did, but because of something he had them do for him. I just think for dumb people, you have no idea what we're talking about because you want to know what the game and who won the game is. But for people who read, you just got to pay attention. This is our country. We all care about it. Don't keep things a secret. Big C, I want to get on your thoughts real quick. We have a great game tonight, and it's coming up down in Dallas. This is a game where, Dallas, they were written off about 3 weeks ago. You look at New Orleans, they're pretty much they're in the NFC Championship game unless there's an upset or someone's an injured person. But they'll be in the NFC Championship game, either home or away, most likely at home. The New Orleans Saints and the Dallas Cowboys, tonight, if they lose this game, the Cowboys, and Philadelphia beats Washington Sunday, there's a three-way tie for the NFL lead in the NFC East with 4 games left. New Orleans could afford a loss. But he got game. We're going to see who got game tonight, Big C. Both quarterbacks, Drew Brees and Prescott, and they've been highly recruited. Prescott came out of the South, and then we have Brees out of the Midwest in Purdue. But give me your thoughts on these players and which one has more game and which one has more to lose tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if New Orleans wins tonight, they guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. They lock up a playoff position. They'll be 11-1, Charlton, on the season. You're looking at the Dallas Cowboys who cannot withstand the loss, Charlton. I mean, if they did, they would be no lower than, first place in their division at this point until Washington, if they beat them, Philadelphia on the weekend.
Yeah.
But when you look at these offenses, here it is with New Orleans averaging basically 37 points a game.
Wow.
And the Dallas defense giving up only 19 points a game. You got the number 1 offense versus the number 3 defense. Everybody always talks about defense wins championships. I haven't seen a defense outscore an offense in a championship game yet. Okay?
No.
So when you use that analogy, and I'm a former defensive player.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always feared most, Charlton, was a hot quarterback.
Yeah.
I can deal with a running back.
Yeah.
But a hot quarterback, I can't get to him enough in the game to intimidate him, to get him off his spot. That's the thing you're looking at with New Orleans. It's very hard to get Drew Brees off his spot. He's 39 years old. He has seen everything. He's 5-2 against Dallas all time in his career.
Wow.
So he has no fear of this defense. Everybody in the NFL right now is sitting back awing at Drew Brees. Dallas Cowboys have played better, but they haven't played great. That's the thing about it. Here's a team in Dallas that they have to score a minimum of 4 touchdowns tonight, really 5, to be in the run with New Orleans.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to slow down that offense. They have too many weapons, and they have too many sets that they run it out of, Charlton, and have you confused. One thing's looking like something, but it's not that.
Yeah.
So this is one of those games, as a fan perspective, you sit back and you're just going to be in awe of New Orleans because they don't understand what slowing down is, Charlton.
No.
They're not about saying, okay, we got a lead and we're going to take it easy. They're throwing the ball in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes remaining, Charlton, up by 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
They don't care.
Yep.
You know, but that's the mentality of a champion. I know that everybody wants Dallas to win, and they say, you know, if Dallas wins, that will ease all the pains on the coaching staff. You want to hear about Jason Garrett being fired, you'll be talking about Dak Prescott's going to be, you know, a franchise-paid quarterback, you know, next year. They're going to give him the money. But, you know, there's some things in the universe that you just can't stop. And right now, that's the New Orleans Saints when it comes to football. And they're playing in a dome. They're not at home, but they're in Dallas.
Yep.
So when they're in the house, Charlton, they haven't lost a road game all year. That's the thing you got to look at. Drew Brees right now is the complete opposite of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers hasn't won a road game all year. Drew Brees has not lost a road game all year.
Yep.
So he's right at home in your house.
Yeah. You know,
he's going to be like Kellyanne Conway. He's going to put his feet on your couch.
He's going to put his shoes on the sofa. I like that commercial said, we'll leave the light on for you. I think that's what Trump and Kellyanne Conway got going on. But at the same time, I just think, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are, what belief you have, whether you're political or whether you're religious or not. When you think about endorsing and putting your arm around a woman who makes a joke that she would go to a lynching and sit front row, and you down there telling people, yeah, what does that guy have in common with us? The black guy, right? What does that guy have in common with us? I mean, come on. That's white people talk for that slave mentality and that racism mentality that they do when you're not around. But POTUS was so brazen, he did it on TV, Big C. That's how dumb he was. And the universe has him being the one that's being accused now by his right-hand man. I just think that's funny. If it wasn't so sad, it would be funny that shortly after he did that garbage, the universe has someone pointing the finger at him that's in a lot more trouble than the guy he said, what does he have in common with us, Big C? So the thing with Prescott, I believe he came out of Mississippi State. He understands what Sidney Highsmith is talking about. And don't think that a lot of young black boys, especially if there's more than one or two in the car, don't get followed, don't get racially profiled, don't get maybe questioned about what are you doing in this part of town, boy. So a lot of guys walk around with their uniforms on, so they can be easily identified because you're not threatening when you have a uniform. But Dak is a football player. He's a grown man. But I just want to get your thoughts. His mindset is not just a football player. When stuff that goes on in Mississippi like it did, that's where he's from, Big C. He's not a robot. Does any of that affecting him, or is it something he's built a thicker skin for, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, he grew up his entire life dealing with those type of situations where, you know, oppression and being of a mixed race child, Charlton, which Dak Prescott is. He had a black father and a white mother. He probably dealt with it more than anybody else because he was being tugged at from both sides. Of the ledger in Mississippi.
Yep.
People would call him, regardless whether it was black or white. Everybody came after Zach.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to look at the strength of this young man, Charlton. He lost his mother a couple of years ago to cancer. He's a very, you know, understanding and appreciative and compassionate young man.
Yes, he is.
That's what you got to look at. He's more of a person than he is a football player.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people understand that is because what he's had to go through in life, Charlton, it made him a strong person. Football was just an escape. But as far as the strength and mentality that he has as a person to overcome adversity that he's had to deal with his entire life, and being there at Mississippi State, Charlton, that's a situation where there's nothing but adversity.
Yeah.
He was very fortunate enough to have Dan Mullen as his head coach. Dan Mullen was the same offensive coordinator that was at Florida who had Tim Tebow and also recruited Cam Newton.
Yes.
So you know, here it is, Dan Mullen was a father figure for him, Charlton, because he understood what this young man had to go through.
Yes.
And he had a guy that didn't grow up in that state mentoring him, which helped him grow up, Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's so important because that's the human side of life, Big C. And when you realize, you know, Dak is an excellent athlete, can run and pass, can make great decisions, very intelligent, very erudite guy. He's also well-mannered, well-spoken. He's not an embarrassment to his organization like a guy like Baker Mayfield is that's patted on the back. You haven't seen Dak Prescott running from the police being tackled down because he did something wrong and then being embraced by mainstream media. On the other hand, you had Prescott. People can't wait to get him out of the starting job. There people say, well, he's not the guy to lead us. You know, he's not like Tony Romo. He's won more games than Tony Romo has as a starter. if you think about his 13-3 start, the only reason they lost that last game is because Jerry Jones started Romo and broke the chemistry of Dallas going into the playoffs. They fell behind in that game to Green Bay, and they came back strong, but it was a little bit too late because Jerry Jones had stopped the chemistry. So here's a guy that came out of Mississippi where Sidney Highsmith would go to a public lynching, and POTUS, who's now in his own trouble, would embrace that woman, never said anything to chastise her. At the end of the day, he got game. Dak Prescott has game, Big C. He's been through the fire. He's been through the adversity. I'm impressed with who he is as a person, and the fact that you spoke about so highly of Dan Mullen. I appreciated what Dan Mullen did in his life too. Big C, final thoughts tonight's game. Most likely it may be a game that New Orleans will win, but if they don't, they can afford a loss. Dallas really can't afford a loss. I still want to see the game, but I want to just get your thoughts on what happens to Jerry Jones' decision if they're not going to get blown out. But if they do get blown out, are we all back to what we had 3 weeks ago? Fire the coach, get rid of Dak Prescott. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, my belief is that they are going to get blown out. This is a game where, Dallas settles for a field goal. New Orleans is laughing.
Right.
They want people to kick field goals against them. I don't see Dallas having the firepower. You got to shut down Dak Prescott. Not Prescott, but Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to do that.
Yeah.
They're going to limit him, Charlton. He's had 3 consecutive games over 100 yards. He's not going to do that tonight in against New Orleans, Charlton. They know that's the number one thing that they have to slow down. They'll get to Zach, but they're going to shut down Ezekiel first.
Yeah.
This is a game that New Orleans will handily win. And I know the odd makers want to say, hey, Dallas has turned the tables. Now that they got Amari Cooper, Charlton, Trayvon Austin would really help if he could come back off the injury list. They would have 2 outstanding wideouts, Charlton, that understand the NFL game. They'd have 2 number 1 draft picks at wide receiver, Charlton, if they get him back off IR.
Yeah.
But this is a game, even if Dallas loses, Charlton, which I feel that they will, they're still in the thick of things in the NFC East, Charlton. They still have to face Washington, and they still have to face Philadelphia. So they're in charge of their own destiny.
Yes.
A loss tonight doesn't impale their season, Charlton. They're still in charge of their own destiny. They just have to take care of business within their division.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a game that's really tight at first, but they might start to run away with it because they run away with everybody that they play in New Orleans. If New Orleans loses, then maybe there's something more going on, but it's all fair and love and war. I don't think they're going to finish out with just 1 loss. They're going to probably have 2 losses by the end of it. And whether that comes tonight or down the road, we'll see. It's just like this thing. I gotta make one more statement before I touch on something else in sports, Big C. I do want to say sports is a $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this $1 billion industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. In a country where I just think the irony of Trump being down there in the South, where a lot of people go to church, and they say Jesus is love, and in your heart, the truth shall come out. Well, a lot of people believe in Jesus. A lot of people believe in God, but a lot of them, African Americans, that's the only hope they had. They were ostracized from the political involvement, Big C. They were ostracized from mainstream jobs and employment. They couldn't go to many of the private schools because oftentimes they would not be allowed in. So they had to make Jesus in their heart, put that in their belief system, and give that to their kids. And then POTUS to go down and embrace that garbage that made it so difficult, because it affects people even like me to this day. I love talking about it because I don't want to be a sycophant, and hopefully we can end that hatred. But for all the people in the great state of Mississippi that love seeing Prescott play, they know what lineage he's coming from. They know the pressures he's faced, and I want to see him do well no matter what happens in that game tonight, Big C. I want to say also, as we look at sports, and we look at one of the bigger games in the sports universe, we go up into Canada. So I got to pay my respects by saying, oh, Canada, our home and native land. We know they're already underway against the great Golden State Warriors, the land of vibranium, 2-time defending NBA champions. This team in Toronto actually can beat them. Even if Curry's healthy, they're just as good as they were last year. I'm not saying they're any better than Big C, but that Toronto team is a really good basketball team. And I want to get your thoughts. If Golden State goes in there and they lose, is it really a sea change in the shift of power, Eastern Conference and Western Conference? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I don't see it being a change in power. When you look at Golden State, since Steph Curry has been out, Charlton, they're a 500 ball club. They're 5-5 without him. So they have not been a dominant team by any capacity. You know, going up playing Toronto's the best team in the NBA. And you should have to challenge the best team in the NBA.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're not even a quarter of the way through the NBA season, Charlton. We haven't played 20 games yet in the NBA season. So, well, we just played 20, so we just passed the quarter mark in the season.
Yeah.
You think that the Golden State Warriors, Charlton, are concerned about where they are right now? You think that the NBA is concerned about the stature of the Golden State Warriors? When you think about the Los Angeles Clippers being the best team in the Western Division right now, record-wise, Charlton,
that's true.
Got to give a lot of kudos to Doc Rivers, the head coach there, with the Clippers. But the Golden State Warriors, Charlton, are a playoff team.
Yeah.
They're a playoff-tested and battle team, Charlton. They can be pushed to the limits in the regular season, but they will push you to the limits in the postseason, Charlton. Yeah. When you look at them playing against the Raptors tonight, this is a one-game series. It's not a 7-game series. That's when the Golden State Warriors are the most lethal in a 7-game series, Charlton. Anybody can beat them one game out of a series, okay?
Right.
But can you beat them 4 out of 7? That's the true test.
Well, that's the test that they're going to find out tonight. And I think for Golden State, whether you win or lose, they're still trying to find their mojo, and I think they'll get it back. Also, on their schedule tonight, with Golden State being up in Toronto, playing in a great environment, one of the best environments, I think, in basketball is what you have when you go up into Toronto. It's a great city, a lot like the Bay Area in itself. I think they have the tallest structure in Northern California. I think tallest structure in Canada. I think it's that CNN tower up there, and it's right by the stadium where the Blue Jays play, and then the Toronto Argonauts used to play there as well. So that's a great environment, both cities, from whether you're San Francisco, Oakland, or Toronto, Canada. I think they really love the way they support the sports. It's a great environment, and hopefully we'll see a great game of that tonight. Also, Big C, I look at the Pacers coming back to California, Indiana Pacers and the LA Lakers. LeBron James' experiment is, I know it's early, like you always say, it's early. Wait until after Christmas and then let's talk about, where teams are. But I want to get your feeling. When LeBron James left Cleveland, came to LA, he came for business. We know that more than basketball. But he has shown LA what it takes to win. At the same time, you got to be committed. And I don't know if a lot of players are as committed as LeBron. I want to ask you, has he set a bad example by maybe usurping the power of the coach, not listening? He also did that to Tyronn Lue back in Cleveland, but he almost has that, I know more than you, why am I listening to you mentality, Big C. Is that starting to hurt the Lakers, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if that's what's hurting the Lakers or the other players are not playing up to LeBron's talent. The only time LeBron's talents have been played up to is when he was in Miami, because he had all-stars on the team with him, Charlton. He went back to Cleveland, and people can say he's not listening to the coach. He does listen to the coach.
Yeah.
The media has to have something to talk about. When LeBron takes control of a basketball game, because he's been trying to get the ball to his teammates, they're not hitting the baskets, Charlton.
Right.
They're not going to the rim. So he says, I can get to the rim. So when he starts doing that, Charlton, and they start standing around looking, that shows the lackadaisicalness of his teammates.
Yeah.
That when he's penetrating and trying to kick out, they were standing there watching.
Yeah.
Just like he was in Cleveland last year, Charlton. They made a trade for some fans, okay?
Yep.
That's what they did. They brought us some guys from a losing team and tried to
watch
put them
him.
on Cleveland. Okay, this is going to be the missing piece.
Yeah.
No, you made a trade for some fans, some guys who enjoyed watching LeBron when he was on television, and even when he was in their arena playing and they were sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing you have with the Lakers. When you look around at this Laker roster, Charlton, who was not a fan of LeBron James last year or even the past 5 years that's on that team? Maybe JaVale McGee, because he was on the Warriors.
Yeah.
So he was an opponent of his. But everybody else was a fan of LeBron, watching LeBron and his exploits on the court. So he came to L.A. LeBron took a back seat when you look at the Lakers' atrocious start, Charlton.
Yeah.
They were losing. LeBron said, okay, I'm going to play LeBron ball. All of a sudden, they get above 500, Charlton.
Yeah.
They win a couple games. LeBron takes a back seat, and all of a sudden they get blown out in 2 consecutive games. They had their worst loss against Denver last night in the history of the organization.
Wow.
32 points.
Wow.
They get blown out. Now the Pacers are coming in town. We know the rivalry that Stevens and LeBron had when he was with the Pacers.
Yeah.
He went after LeBron wholeheartedly. He wasn't a fan of his. So when you look at Stevens, you look at Rondo, and since Rondo has been out of the lineup, Charlton, the offensive productivity has gone down.
Yeah.
But when you look at the Pope, you look at the veterans, Chandler, McGee.
Yeah.
Those guys, Charlton, understand what it's like to play at a high level. You look at all those young players in Los Angeles, and everybody saying, well, we're trying to develop the young players. Prior to LeBron showing up, that's all you heard.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, it was a process, just like in Philadelphia. Well, you can't bring in veteran players and say, okay, I'm trying to develop young players.
Right.
They either get up to speed or you leave them on the bench, Charlton.
Yeah, because it's a very competitive world. But I want to get your thoughts too, Big C. Did LeBron, we know he came to L.A., for the business purposes, but he had a house. When you have his kind of money, you have a house where you want. They got more than one place to stay. At some point in time, I know his son's in school outside L.A. too, but at what point in time will he not? You just brought up a great point. In Miami, he was surrounded with other guys who played at that high level. It's a lot like Kobe and Shaq. They had those. They're Hall of Famers. And then they had the supporting cast, Robert Horry or just other players that played. Fisher. They're good players, but they're not Hall of Famers. Maybe Horry because of the rings, but not because of the talent. But he was not the leader when it came to Shaq and Kobe on the floor. LeBron has no one to equal him right now. Even when he was back in Cleveland, he did have Kyrie Irving, and for whatever reason, Irving wanted to go over and play at Boston. It hasn't been the same, but he played to Boston, and LeBron still went to a finals. Kyrie Irving did not, injury or not. Do you think maybe he regretted at some point in time going to L.A. because when you realize there's no one on par with him, they did not get Paul George to come to L.A. I know Magic's going to work his magic at the end of this year, but is it regret at all, Big C? Your thoughts?
I don't feel it's a regret. What was in Cleveland, Charlton? The cupboards were empty in Cleveland. He went to 4 consecutive title runs in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Got 1 title out of it, Charlton. But he was carrying the team the whole time. He came to L.A. because he felt that the organization would surround him with a better cast.
Yeah.
And if people want to knock LeBron for LeBron being LeBron, then you don't understand basketball.
Yeah.
He's a championship competitor, Charlton. Regardless of business interests, they just didn't start in Los Angeles. They've been existing for the past decade.
Yeah.
Even while he was in Cleveland and Miami, Charlton, he had these exploits going on.
Yeah.
It's just you always trying to compare his teammates to him.
Yeah.
Everybody in the media wants to compare LeBron's teammates to him. Like I said, only time he had people that were comparable to him was in Miami. You had Allen, you had Wade, you had Bosh.
Yeah.
They were in the starting lineup, Charlton. He had players that were all-star caliber players, Charlton, in Miami. He had players that eventually, Charlton, became champions.
Yeah.
When you look at the Lakers lineup, Charlton, Rondo has a ring, okay?
Yeah.
McGee has a couple rings. Tyson Chandler has a ring. But when you look at the rest of the misfits they have in Los Angeles, Charlton, you got a lot of one-and-dones in college coming to the Lakers. And they were misfits before LeBron showed up. What was the Lakers' record prior to LeBron showing up?
Yeah.
And then you keep these same guys that were losers on the floor with LeBron and say, well, the Lakers are struggling and LeBron just hasn't found his fit. He's done what he could do. If you look at the comparison of the Lakers' record at this time last year, Charlton, they're way ahead of schedule as far as the productivity that they've gotten out of this team.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But the biggest change in that team, Charlton, were those veteran players coming over because that process of developmental players, Charlton, still hasn't developed.
That's a good point. I like what you say, always wait after Christmas and see how things shape out. I still think the Lakers are a playoff team. I think they'll get in somehow, 7 or 8 seed. I also want to look at the number 1 team right now in the Western Conference. You look at the L.A. Clippers playing at Sacramento, kind of a resurgent team. This is the time where the Kings are coming along, playing better. I do like De'Aaron Fox. I like Willie Cauley-Stein. But I look at no matter who Doc Rivers has. He lost Chris Paul, and people thought, well, it's going to be the demise of the Clippers, but it's not. I mean, they have a better record than Houston. And I think the one main thing there, they lost J.J. Redick. But when you look at who they have Doc Rivers. He's been the calming voice for the Clippers. I remember when the other owners said something about not wanting African American, to come to the game unless they're in a uniform and etc. I think that Doc's the guy that he was the glue that held that together through all the garbage that you shouldn't have to deal with, but he dealt with it. Your thoughts on the upstart Kings and the flying high Clippers right now? I think it's really good basketball for LA, at least for the Clippers, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's good for the NBA to have some competitive teams in the Western Division.
Yeah.
You think about the Sacramento Kings, and we talk about the development of the young players. This is a team that did not try to infuse the roster with some older veterans. They let the process continue, just like they did in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And it has thus far this season showed dividends. Just like with the Clippers, Charlton, when Doc Rivers felt it was time to move off of some veteran players, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, it was an easy decision to let these players go, Charlton, because it did not allow the other players on the roster to reach their potential.
Yeah.
But being the solid coach that he is, and former championship coach, Charlton, he understood what the development is. When you look at what he's done, he's been the high and the low of this league.
Yeah.
And he took the time to put this right roster together, Charlton. And he has them playing well. He'll have the sixth man of the year, most likely, with the Clippers, Charlton. But Doc Rivers understands basketball. You don't hear the talk about, somebody's taking over the team on the court and not listening to the coach.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers is in charge. When you think about Los Angeles with the Clippers and the Lakers are a soap opera.
Yeah.
They were a soap opera before the season started.
Yeah.
They'll be a soap opera the entire season. And the Clippers love that, Charlton, because no one even knew that they were in first place. Everyone was paying attention to the Lakers.
Yeah, that's true. I love basketball. It's a great game. So Golden West Center in Northern California, that'll be packed for the tip-off between the Clippers and also the Sacramento Kings. I want to get your thoughts on a different sport. I saw the Lakers have that made-up fight with the Houston Rockets, and I thought, what a joke. LeBron James was the one that showed maturity, and he pulled people aside as opposed to jumping into it like some of the other knuckleheads. But I want to get your thoughts on what's happening with the world of boxing. It's been a while since we could really celebrate a heavyweight champion in the world of boxing, Big C, and all over the world, especially in Europe. They can attract a lot larger, boxing audiences than we have here in the United States. But in boxing, you have the Wilder and Fury fight Saturday night for the unification of the heavyweight championship of the world. And in fact, as Big C Sports says, heavyweight champion of the universe. But Wilder there's something about that guy. He's 40-0 with 39 knockouts. You probably lost a fight getting into the ring with him. I know you've seen a lot of fighters over the years. You've seen Ali. Whether it's learning about Joe Louis and, of course, seeing Mike Tyson and Foreman and Evander Holyfield, Larry Holmes. Just give me your thoughts on this kid Wilder at 40-0, 39 knockouts, Big C. It's hard to do that to anything, knock out 39 people, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Deontay Wilder, Charlton, could be the most devastating heavyweight puncher that we ever seen.
Really?
He has a massive frame. He's 6'7". And that brings a lot of leverage, Charlton, when you're throwing punches. You think about it, he's knocked out 39 fighters, Charlton, and not just knocked them out. I mean, he's hitting people and their body is moving, Charlton.
Yeah.
He is a very vicious puncher. Seeing Mike Tyson in his heyday, and I never thought I'd see anybody who would hit like Iron Mike again.
Yeah.
But Deontay Wilder, Charlton, has done the same thing and even more than what Mike Tyson has done. He's going to fight Fury. Fury's he's one of the belts he's holding.
Yeah.
He knocked out one of the Klitschko brothers, Charlton, to get the title.
Yeah.
But, he's been out of boxing for a while. Matter of fact, once he won that championship, that title, Charlton, he ended up gaining over 100 pounds.
Wow.
All he wanted to do was party and have fun.
Yeah.
So his body is not going to be up to be able to stand the fury of Wilder.
Yeah.
A couple of body shots, Charlton, and you got to understand, he's 6'9".
Yeah. So
this is the tallest heavyweight champion fight in history.
Wow.
A 6'7" fighter versus a 6'9" fighter. This 6'7" fighter, Charlton, he throws 4 or 5 body shots on Fury. All of a sudden, Fury's putting the hands down. And that jaw is wide open, Charlton.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been out in the woods and cut down a tree. But that's what it's going to look like when Fury hits the canvas. He may be unconscious before he hits the ground.
Well, I've been out in the woods cutting trees, but they were already on the ground, Big C. I did it the smart way. You good old boys make them fall like Paul Bunyan back in the day. But give me your thoughts, though. You think he's the best puncher you've seen? You know, we had guys like George Foreman, who before Tyson came along, people were afraid that Ali was going to get hurt in the ring because here's a guy that can also knock down trees, Big C, and George Foreman. And in fact, I don't know if this stat is right, but George Foreman's total career, 76 fights. I mean, he's 76-5 and 68 knockouts, Big C. And then you look at Mike Tyson, he's 50 wins, 6 losses, 44 knockouts. Holyfield was beat Tyson. 44-10 is his record with 29 knockouts. And then the greatest of them all, Muhammad Ali, 56 wins, 5 losses, 37 knockouts. You're saying that you think Wilder had a better punch than all of them, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, he has a better power punch than any of those fighters that you talked about. When you look at his knockout percentage, Charlton, he's knocked out 99% of the fighters that he faced.
Yeah.
Nobody else was at that ratio. Mike Tyson was the closest, Charlton. George Foreman was right behind him because their fights early on in their career didn't go much time. Same as Wilder, Charlton. And there's not, you can always judge different eras of fighters, saying, well, the quality of fighter is not as good now as it was in. You'll always have that in football, basketball, baseball. But you're fighting the guys that are there and that are available. Charlton, he hasn't ducked anybody. He's had 40 people come across his path. 39 of them went to sleep. Number 41 is coming up on Saturday night. And you think about this, Charlton, and I don't know who the bookmakers was on this fight. Did anybody understand that all these college championship games would be played on that Saturday, Charlton?
Wow.
That had been scheduled for the year, okay? Everybody knew that.
Yeah.
So why do you put up a championship heavyweight fight against college football championships?
Yeah.
20 years ago, Charlton, everybody would have been watching that heavyweight fight because Mike Tyson would have been fighting. Unfortunately, Wilder is not as popular as Tyson because of the MMA, Charlton. It's taken away a lot of the luster from the heavyweight ranks, Charlton. But, and not only that, your buddy out there in Vegas, it's taken away a lot of the luster from the heavyweight ranks.
Yeah.
So when everybody wants to say, well, Mayweather.
Yeah.
Mayweather is an R of Wilder, Charlton. I mean, when you think about what he could do, and I hate that this fight is on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
This is one of those fights, Charlton, that should be there for the masses to see because he's a great American treasure.
Yeah.
That we have an American who can unify all the heavyweight belts, Charlton, on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And America doesn't even know who he is.
He's the number one fighter in the universe, Big C. When you think about it, I mean, everybody has their own thing, but he's African American, and to be the best in the fight game, and to have the stuff that goes on in politics, how so many people fight against, black achievement, and that's people know it's true. That's what the Jim Crow laws were all about. Everybody's fought against it. Here's a guy.
Charlton, you talk about Jim Crow laws and achievement. Deontay Wilder is from Alabama. And he was an athlete in that state. And he gave up his athletic career, Charlton, to become a boxer because he had a daughter who was born with Down syndrome. And this was when they talk about athletes being selfish. He wasn't. He gave up an opportunity where he may have been a professional basketball player, Charlton.
Yeah.
But he had a child that he cared more about. And he knew that being in college, benefiting that university, was not going to pay for his daughter's medical bills, Charlton.
Yep.
So he walked away from that scholarship. People were like, wow, you got a free scholarship. What are you complaining about? Well, that scholarship didn't take care of the medical needs of his daughter who was born with Down syndrome.
Wow.
So he needed to be able to take care of her, Charlton.
Yeah.
That was the priority in his life. That's what parents do. They sacrifice what people think may be the best opportunity for them.
Yeah.
But Charlton, here's one of those situations like you talked about earlier in the program. It comes back to you, Charlton.
Yeah.
It turns around and comes back to you. He did a great deed for his family and his daughter, Charlton.
Yep.
He gave up an athletic career and pursued another one, Charlton, that he had no experience in.
Yeah.
But he knew he had the need and the hunger to take care of his daughter. And that propelled him to being the world heavyweight champion, Charlton.
Well, I love that, and his daughter's in a much better position because she has a father like that. And a lot of people make sacrifices. I'm really, really proud of the young man. 39 knockouts. Just may as well put 40. Why not just round up? Big C, is that what you said? Just round up to 40. As we get ready for tonight's NFL game. I know it's already underway. If you were starting an NFL franchise today, say who'd be your top 5 or 6 quarterbacks? Would it be Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, maybe Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Mitch Trubisky, or Dak Prescott on scene tonight? Give me your thoughts on that, Big C. Who would it be out of all those great athletes, Big C?
Well, Charlton, if I was starting an NFL franchise today, there's no way that I would not take Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of whether he's a second-year player, Charlton, or a 12-year player, what he has done is just unfathomable. The only player that's been more dominant, I think, as far as keeping his team on track has been Drew Brees.
Yeah.
As far as what Patrick Mahomes has done this year, Charlton, the record-setting pace for a first-year quarterback, even though he was drafted last year, a first-year quarterback, he came in that same class with Deshaun Watson and Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, Charlton.
Yeah.
But he has exceeded, in the second year, Charlton, he has exceeded everyone in that. And then I got to look at Deshaun Watson. We know of the lightning start that he had to the season last year, Charlton, where he came in and he put the NFL on his ear. He outdueled Russell Wilson up in Seattle. He outdueled Tom Brady in Foxborough. And had that unfortunate knee injury, Charlton, in practice.
That's right.
And just, he had nothing but stars in his future. The Texans got off to an 0-3 start this year, and everybody said, well, what's wrong with Watson?
Right.
Well, Watson didn't play in the preseason.
Right.
And so those first 3 games, Charlton, he was working out all the kinks. In the last 8 games, I've listened to a lot of broadcasters and analysts out there, Charlton.
Yeah.
Nobody said what's wrong with Watson. I wonder why. You win 8 consecutive games. The only quarterback that has won more consecutive games this season, Charlton, is Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yeah.
So when you think about where he is, and then I go to Jared Goff, he's going to be number 3 on my list. After his first year of being under Jeff Fisher, Charlton, he's done nothing but be an excellent NFL quarterback. I mean, he has done everything that you can expect out of a quarterback with the Rams, Charlton. Last year, winning the Western Division, having them with the second-best record in the NFC this year, Charlton, being one of the top-rated passers in the league also. Just a great player with a great coach in Sean McVay.
Yep.
I like what Mitch Trubisky has done in his second year in Chicago, Charlton. He's got a coach that understands him offensively.
Yeah.
He's been surrounded by some excellent players, running backs and receivers, Charlton, that has allowed him to develop. And he's done much better than what people think that he would do.
Yep.
And then the next young player, Charlton, I mean, I got to still look at Carson Wentz in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the season that he had in his sophomore journey, Charlton, prior to his knee injury. But he still has his team a half game out of first place in the NFC East.
Yeah.
And most likely will be tied after this Sunday.
I tell you what, those are all good observations. Everybody has a lot of opportunity and hope. Like we started out the show, Big C, we talked about, he got game. Well, who has game? In the final, before we close out today, we have the Heisman Trophy chase. And I know things have changed over the last 30 and 40 years. When I look at the Heisman Trophy guys, you have Tua out of Alabama, Murray out of Oklahoma, Haskins out of Ohio State. 3 black quarterbacks, Big C, leading the Heisman Trophy candidacy. We also have Minshew out of Washington State. He's good. And I'm sorry, Gardner out of Will Gardner, and Gardner Minshew out of Washington State, and Will Grier out of West Virginia. They're all good players, but when I look at the 5 that people are talking about, only 3 can still play right now. You have Tua out of Alabama playing Georgia, Murray playing Texas, he's out of Oklahoma, Haskins for Ohio State playing Northwestern, and then Grier and also Minshew, their seasons came to an end with West Virginia and Washington State. As a media guy and a guy who plays sports at all levels, your thoughts on these 3 African-American players that are all up for the Heisman that can still play. We know they're not going to get the media love that a lot of guys don't get once it's time to get paid. While they're doing it for free, they're going to love them. When it's time to play, they're going to say, well, he'd be better as a wide receiver or defensive back, or this guy might be better if he played maybe tight end or defensive lineman. All that garbage we've seen over the years, Big C. Which one of these players out of Tua, Murray, and then Haskins really has a chance to become media darling for the NFL, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at him for just a pure quarterback, NFL caliber quarterback right now, Haskins out of Ohio State is savvy and he's ready.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the opportunity to declare this year for the NFL draft, and I hope that he does because Urban Meyer will not return to Ohio State as the head coach next season. He's out of there. You know, with the scandal that they had to start the season, and then he came back and saying, I'm suffering from headaches and I have medical issues. That gives him a pass to exit out of Ohio State, Charlton, with grace.
Yeah.
But when you look at this Heisman race, and really those three guys are the ones really up front because they're still playing this weekend. Well, when you look at Alabama and Tua, everybody says he's the hands-down favorite to win the Heisman. What was Alabama's record last year, Charlton, without Tua? And he basically inherited the same team that they had. Alabama would have went undefeated through the SEC, even if Jalen Hurts had played quarterback for Alabama. May not have been as electrifying offensively, but Charlton, but that defense, you got to, what team has challenged Alabama all year long? When has Tua had to be in the fourth quarter to try to get his team a win, Charlton, in the last drive of the game? He has not had any pressure on him as quarterback. His defense has made it real easy for him. On the flip side, you look at Kyler Murray in Oklahoma. When Oklahoma had won any games this year without Kyler Murray, you really have to ask that question. Because when you're the highest scoring team left in the playoffs, Charlton, there's a reason for that. And every game, Oklahoma was challenged in the fourth quarter. Every game that they played, Charlton. Kyler Murray had heroics for 12 games this year, Charlton, that propelled Oklahoma to the level of where they are. He's been consistent all year long. When you think about it, after this game on Saturday, Charlton, he will have accounted for well over 50 touchdowns on the season. Think about that.
That's amazing.
One quarterback accounting for over 50 touchdowns on the season and over 5,000 yards in total offense. He has 3,700 yards passing, Charlton. He has over 800 yards rushing. He has 37 touchdown passes, and he has 11 touchdowns running. So he's going to eclipse the 50-touchdown plateau and the 5,000-yard total plateau, Charlton, after Saturday's game. You look at Dwayne Haskins, who is the second most valuable quarterback when you look up there, Charlton, because without him, with Ohio State being the position that they are, you know, he led the nation with 41 touchdown passes, Charlton, and he had over 4,000 yards passing. He had several touchdowns on the ground also. So when you look at the impact of Kyler Murray, what he meant to Oklahoma, could they have won without him? No. They might have been a 3-9 team, Charlton, without Kyler Murray. Because you're going to tell me that another quarterback could have did what he did against Texas Tech, against West Virginia, all those teams, Charlton, where he had to put over 50 points on the board for his team to win. And then you look at Haskins in Ohio State, Charlton. They had some shootouts this year. Where without Haskins, Charlton, they were going to lose. They lost the one game to Purdue, but without Haskins, Charlton, they didn't stand a chance this year because there was nobody else behind him that could strike a match, period. But when you look at Alabama, regardless of who you plugged in at quarterback in Alabama, even when Tua was hurt, think about this, Charlton, he shouldn't even...
He shouldn't have been playing, basically, Big C. He had that injury going on with him. Okay, Big C, I think we got you back on, Big C. We were having some issues with Putin. Not only did Trump cancel his G7 meeting with Putin, he tried to tap into the Big C Sports Show again. He got to pay for it, Big C. Go right ahead and finish your thoughts, Big C.
Well, Charlton, with Tua in Alabama, I mean, any of the quarterbacks on that roster would have been a winner. When you look at Alabama over the past 8 years, they've just plugged in quarterbacks. It didn't make any difference who it was. They just plugged in, and they won because their defense is so dominant. You can't say the same about Ohio State. You definitely can't say the same thing about Oklahoma. So when you look at a quarterback, when they talk about the best quarterback in the country, the player that a team could not win without, Charlton, Kyler Murray, you could not win without him at Oklahoma, and you couldn't win at Ohio State without Dwayne Haskins, who I think should declare for the NFL draft, Charlton. He would be the first quarterback taken.
That's a great statement, and I hope they do. Big C, speaking of he got game, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking at this exciting football game tonight in New Orleans. Like I said, I had all this meat out there on the grill and in the oven, you know, and I can smell it permeating throughout the house.
Yep.
So, you know, if I pass out and I'm not able to do tomorrow's show, you know I ate well.
Yeah. Well, be fair to all the other people that want something to eat too. Save some of the wildlife from some of the other people. Picking up some of the other people every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to tell you, there's never, ever, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.